Good morning. My name is Adriana Arboleda. I am a student of 9th semester of foreign language in UCEBA, and I am preparing for being a teacher. This is my place of work and where I start with my teaching practice in the military academy. In their military modality prepares their cadets to enter mainly to the military training schools. I teach in preschool and 7 to 11th grade, but I have focused my practice on 9th grade with students between 13 and 15 years old. As a student, we always have a different perspective of what education is. Mainly, people think that for being a teacher is enough to have knowledge, patience, or simply authority. But it is not that way. In facing this new experience as a teacher, I learned that apart from the vocation and interest in training people, it is a duty to be highly qualified to face this great responsibility. Before starting with this project of teaching practice, I set myself the task of diagnosing the grade as such, from their cognitive level to the environment they live during their educational journey. The diagnosis was only the first step. From there arose the approach of a problem to investigate and a justification that met certain objectives, being the main one to get the students to increase their competence in the communicative skills of English, especially writing and speaking. For this, different strategies were implemented that helped to fulfill that objective, among them the methodology for teaching and learning, based on Oswald theory of meaningful learning, cooperative or team learning, the sociocultural theory of Vygotsky, and the constructivism, where the student is guided by the teacher and helping to build his conviction through the information provided by the tutor. Okay, do you remember the characters I told you about the symptoms? The name of the character? Yes. At the beginning of the year, I found that my students were not in the level indicated for their grade, since they had previously been taught English in a very mechanical way, where they were qualified for carrying the dictionary and memorize large lists of verb lists. This practice had students determined to learn English only memorably, even learning sucks to expand vocabulary without establishing an objective regarding the subject to implement. Students in the academy have a rigorous discipline, which favors the classroom environment on most occasions, but also limits them to follow only the instructions given by their teachers. That is, students rarely participate in an autonomous way. Bearing in mind that in most classes, a sergeant assists to review the processes taken in class, also tends to intimidate students, even more when they are fearful of facing a new language. In the military academy, teachers are often prevented from performing their practices since classes are not allowed to be as dynamic as learning a new language requires and as the teacher would like to. The rigorous discipline of the academy doesn't agree with implementing turbulent dynamics. For example, one day I decided to play Simon Says. My students were excited, but I was scolded. Therefore, the policies of the institution have not really favored my practices. In the first classes, my methodology was based on the teaching of tenses, where through grammatical structures, the students were guided to construct their own examples of sentences in different verb tenses. After that, group activities were worked, and finally, each student socialized its construction. Attending to the theory of constructivism, since the student put into practice what the teacher thought, and in the cooperative work, attending to the process of the zone of proximal development proposed by Vygotsky. Having already listed some of the obstacles presented in the second language classes, it is also worth mentioning the lack of resources available to implement the activities, because in that area of the institution there is no internet coverage. The use of video beam is limited, since there are only 2 for the whole institution. Students are accustomed to being graded with prior notice. That is, they only accept to be evaluated if they are advised from the previous day, and so they prepare, unfortunately, in a memoristic way. Knowing this situation took me to spend much more time in planning classes because I always have to think of the appropriate way for my students to be interested in English, but without losing the characteristic of the academy. From the 9th grade, students enter in the military-oriented training. They study from Monday to Saturday from 6 to 6 p.m. This leaves them to many little time to reinforce the language from home. Reason why I have focused on make the most of time during the classes. The assessment have been with open notebook, so that the students are guided with the examples seen during the previous classes. They have responded very well to these practices because despite the great pressure with which they live from the part of the military, they also have a good attitude to take advantage of the classes. They state that this year they have learned English. Finally, the change has been very noticeable, reflects a great advance in their level. They have come to build for themselves different textual productions. They already know the proper pronunciation of many words and have increased their vocabulary due to the need to use different complements to create sentences in different verbal tenses. I'm very happy with the progress of my students. They have learned to use English in context from the communicative approach. As the academy is my place of work, I still have 5 more months to achieve a very good performance of me as a teacher and a better level of the cadets, making them their love for English increases. Thank you a lot.